Hey guys, it's Miss Atkinson and I'm going to talk to you today about fraction, decimal, and percent. Thank you for everybody who sent in their worksheet. Today we are going to do a little bit of a review. You guys should already know this, but we're going to start with fractions. So, what is a fraction? A fraction is a piece of something. So, it is a part of something. We have a numerator and a denominator. The numerator is always on the top, the denominator is always on the bottom. So in this case, we have 3/4. So the numerator is 3. That's how many pieces of the whole that you have. 4 is the number of pieces in the whole. So if I had a pizza, I ate 3/4 of the pizza, that means I ate 3 out of the 4 pieces. So in this case, if we wanted to make an equivalent fraction, that means it is a fraction that is equal to. So 3/4. Whatever you do to the numerator, you must do to the denominator. So that just means whatever you do to the top, you must do to the bottom. So in this case, we'll do the easiest thing. We'll multiply it by 2. So you multiply by 2. So 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. That is an equivalent fraction. So 3/4 is equal to 6/8. We could keep going. We could do it again. We could multiply this by 2 again. So 6 times 2 is 12. 8 times 2 is 16. This is how we do equivalent fractions. So when asked when you are to make an equivalent fraction, all you have to do is multiply it by a number, but whatever number you choose, you must do to the top what you do to the bottom. You can do 5, you can do 3, you can do any number you want, but whatever you do to the numerator, you must do to the denominator. Okay, now we're going to talk about lowest terms. Lowest terms means that you need to take this fraction into the smallest it can possibly be. So, for example, the first one I have here is 20/25. Same rule applies. Whatever you do to the top, you must do to the bottom. Whatever you do to the numerator, you must do to the denominator. So, what is a number that can divide into each of these? Well, 5 would work. So, we are going to divide the top by 5 and the bottom by 5. So, 20 divided by 5 is 4. 25 divided by 5 is 5. So 4/5 is an equivalent fraction to 20/25, but this is the lowest possible term. So here we go again. We've got 80 out of 100. This is a much bigger fraction. So we'll start with something small. We know that this can definitely be divided by 2 because it's an even number. So 80 divided by 2 is 40. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Still, we can still divide this again. It ends in 0, so let's divide it by 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8. 50 divided by 5 is 10. Still, we can still make this even smaller. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. What do you know? 20/25 and 80/100, 40/50, 8 out of 10, they all equal 4 out of 5. Those are all equivalent fractions. They all have the same value. Last one. It says 10/50. So we could, right away, we know that it could be divided by 2, but we also know that it could be divided by 5. And you always want to use the bigger number because that means less work for you. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. 50 divided by 5 is 10. Well, we can still do this one more time because we have even numbers. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 1/5 is the lowest possible term for 10 over 50. So when you are asked to give in lowest terms, you need to make sure that the numerator and the denominator cannot be made any smaller. When we are talking about percentages or taking a fraction into a percent, we want to make sure that the total number of pieces you have is out of 100, because 100% is perfect. You can get more than 100%, but then you have more than a whole. So, for example, if I had got 2 out of 10 on a test, well, I would want to make this out of 100, so I know how much I got out of 100%. So I would, 10 goes into 100 10 times. Whatever you do to the numerator, you must do to the denominator. So 10 times 10 is 100, 2 times 10 is 20. So 20 out of 100, that is equal to 20%. If I got 45 out of 50 on a test, which would be a good mark, by the way, then you would want to make it out of 100. So what do I have to do to 50 to make 100? I have to multiply it by 2. So I would do the same up here. 45 times 2 is 90, which would be 90%. Same here. I want to make this out of 100 so I know what my percentage is. So what do I do to 25 to get to 100? I multiply it by 4. So I'm going to multiply that 5 by 4 too and get 20 out of 100, which would equal 20%. Now, if you are ever working with a denominator that does not divide evenly or can be multiplied into 100 evenly, then the easiest way to find your percentage, but you might have to round if you remember how to round. For example, if I got 1 out of 3, well, what is that in percentage? All you have to do is divide the numerator by the denominator. So in this case, I would divide 1 by 3, which equals 0.3333, and so on and so on. So I would round that. So I'm going to look at this number here, and it's less than 5. So this would be 33%. And this is why decimals, fractions, and percent are all interrelated. So when you are trying to get to review, if you do not have a denominator that divides equally or can be multiplied equally into 100, you just take the number that you got out of the denominator. So you would divide 1 by 3, you would get a decimal, and then you can change this decimal into a percent. Okay guys, imagine that we had a test that was out of 30. I got 25 out of 30 questions correct. So I'm going to take out my calculator because no, I am not so smart that I can just do all of this in my head. So I will take the numerator, 25, and I'm going to divide it by the denominator, 30, which will give me 0.834. So that's a decimal, but we're going to turn that into a percent. So we're going to look at this number here. It is not greater than 5, so my percentage would be 83%, because we are going to round down in this case. Now, here we go. I did another test, and I got 40 out of 45. So I'm going to take the numerator, 40, and I'm going to divide it by the denominator, 45, and I'm going to get 0.889. Again, that's a decimal. We're going to turn it into a percent. So I'm going to look at this number. It's greater than 5, so I'm going to round up. So my percentage would be 89%. Did another test. Not as good this time. I got 30 out of 75. So I'm going to take 30, I'm going to divide it by 75, which equals 0.400. Super easy. Now I can see right here that I don't need to round it all, so my percentage would be 40%. Well, I failed that test, but hopefully I'll do better next time. Okay, so that is a review of fraction, decimal, and percent. Please do the Google form and the Google Doc with the questions in it, and we will take it up on Friday. Bye.